Thank you. At this point, I'll also want to ask to basically receive the remarks of Honorable Advocate Jacob Mutenda, Speaker of Parliament of Zimbabwe. The Honorable Speaker's remarks will be delivered by Senator Dr. Langton Chikupa. Dr. Chikupa, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much. Like you have already said, the Speaker has asked me to send a message of apology for failing to join us on this very important meeting due to some urgent commitments he has gone to attend to. As such, I'll go through reading his remarks on his behalf. The Speaker of the National Assembly of Côte d'Ivoire, the Speaker of the National Assembly of the Central African Republic, the Speaker of the National Assembly of Gabon, the Speaker of the National Assembly of Gambia, other honorable speakers here present, APNODE Chairperson Evelyn in absentia, members of APNODE's Executive Committee, parliamentarians from member countries, other officials, representatives of APNODE, that is APNODE Development Partners, distinguished facilitators, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege once again to be giving remarks at the 60th APNODE Annual General Meeting being held virtually owing to the new normal following the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in November 2019. Concerted efforts adopted by our different nations worldwide to contain the spread of the pandemic resulted in the postponement of the AGM in 2020. The pandemic has indeed had a great impact and brought about fundamental changes to the social, economic, and cultural spheres of our lives. Sadly, many lives have been lost, among them members of parliament from our parliaments. May their dear souls rest in peace. Governments all over the world have pronounced national policies, enacted legislation, and rolled out programs which include vaccination in response to the pandemic. As APNODE members, you have a duty to subject these policies and programs to monitoring and evaluation if you are to remain relevant during this crisis period. It is gratifying, however, that against this background, the APNODE Executive Committee has embraced the prevailing circumstances by resolving to have a virtual AGM. The theme of this AGM, enhancing parliamentary oversight and capacity for action during COVID-19, lessons from Africa. It is apt given the common challenges we are all faced with as we experience one COVID-19 wave after the other. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to express my sincere appreciation to the APNODE Executive Committee for working tirelessly under difficult conditions to keep the work of the network alive. I have been following the network's activities with keen interest since our last AGM held from 28 to 31 August 2019 in Abidjan. These activities include the monthly executive committee meetings, country webinars, and the participation of members at various forums, such as the Evaluation for Action, regional consultations, and the 2021 Global Evaluation Week, held from 31 May to 4 June 2021. I had been invited by the Executive Committee to participate as a panelist at a discussion during the Global Evaluation Week, but unfortunately, I could not attend due to another commitment. I nominated Honorable B. Dube, the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, whom I was advised by the APNODE Secretariat that he acquainted himself very well on the topic, African parliaments, enhanced oversight and the fight against corruption, lessons from strengthening compliance programs. Ladies and gentlemen, coming back to this AGM, I honestly believe members will enhance their knowledge by gaining valuable insights through the interactions they are going to be engaging in over the next 2 days. Let me reiterate that the knowledge gained and experiences shared should not be an exercise in futility, as the practices should be implemented in our member parliaments and countries at large. Let me conclude by wishing you fruitful deliberations during this AGM. As this gathering is also an elective AGM, let me express my gratitude once again to the outgoing Executive Committee members for taking the network through this rough patch. I implore the incoming Executive Committee members to continue with the good work of the network by ensuring that APNODE becomes bigger and more effective by continuing to achieve its noble objectives. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dr. Lantin Chikuba, for the presentation from the Honorable Advocate Jacob Mutenda, Speaker of Parliament of Zimbabwe. We thank you for the very forceful presentation, and we take Honorable Mutenda's comments very highly, and he has been very supportive of the network, as you rightly pointed out, and also as Karen had mentioned in her speech this morning. And Zimbabwe also did host the AGM, the APNODE Annual General Meeting in Harare in 2016. So once again, thank you very much. Thanks to Honorable Professor Sarienji, and thanks also to Dr. Senator Lantin Chikuba, who presented on behalf of Honorable Advocate Jacob Mutenda, Speaker of Parliament for Zimbabwe. Thank you very much. Okay, at this point, we've had the interventions from the two speakers. With your permission, we'll go back to the session that we're on, and we'll then review the presentation of the APNODE financial reports for 2019 and 2020. The presentation of the APNODE financial report will be done by Senator Dr. Lantin Chikuba, who we already have you on screen, and I'm going to pass the mic on to you, Honorable Senator Chikuba. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you may allow me once again to recognize our honorable speakers of Parliament. I would want also to recognize our most valuable development partners, our network partners. I would want to present to you our financial reports, which will cover 2019 and 2020. And these financial reports would be looking at figures. Let me from the very onset say that the figures we have, because of the volume of the transactions, they are very simple, clear, and easy to follow. So we will not have any challenges in the presentations. And as well as to take note that as I make presentations on the financial reports, the figures would be in US dollars. So I request Kobena to move on to the next slide. Before as well I delve deeper into our financial reports, I would want to express our sincere, profound gratitude on behalf of APNODE Executive on the support which we have got, support in kind, financial support in terms of resources for our network. Would want to appreciate if you could go back to the first slide, Kobena. I will ask you to move to the next slide. All right, for now, if you keep on to that slide. So I want to express appreciation for the development partners who have supported us, the network partners who have supported us, and also our secretariat. So moving on to our financial reports. Our financial reports, according to the APNODE Constitution, they stretch from January to December. That's our financial year. And the first slide, which is there, the highlight is on the resources which we had at the beginning of the year. That is 2019. In January, we had 24,845. That is the figure we started the financial year with, 24,845. From that figure, its composition, it was made up of 4,245 from the Korean Trust Fund. There was as well $20,600 in membership fees to make a total of $24,845. It is also important to take note that our network also benefited in kind and financial support of key partners such as the IDEF, the Clear AA, Twendembele, the RFE. These are our strategic partners who also supported the network in kind. So in terms of the financial, the opening balance, like we have said, it was 24,845 at the beginning of the year. We move on to the next slide. On the next slide, what we are seeing there is how the funds were expended. Remember, we started with a balance, and we are now looking at how the funds were expended, how the funds were used. We used $13,100 during the course of the year 2019. The $13,100, its composition, its breakdown, $4,245 which we used was from the Korean Trust Fund. $8,855 was from the APNODE membership fees, which give us a total of $13,100, which was used from the initial $24,845 which we had during the beginning of the year. Also important to take note that this money was used, expended to cater for the 5th APNODE AGM. That was the major use of these funds. So we move on to highlight 3. On highlight 3, important to highlight that we received over and above the figure we started with in January. We received $147,710 from our key development partners. We received these funds in kind. And the funds were expended during the course of year on various activities. Also, during the course of 2019, we received $20,865. These are funds which we received from our network partners in terms of fees from network partners. Then, at the end of the year now, after all expenditure, we remained with $32,610 in our purse. So that's the balance which we remained with at the end of the year 2019. If we could move on to the next slide. Right. The next slide is a summary of all I have been presenting. It's clear, summarized there. We start with the category. The category is for the first category, first column is for the members' fees, where our funds are coming from. We also have the Korean Trust Fund at Africa Development Bank. The second column, it is speaking to our balances at the beginning of the year. The third column, entitled Total Revenue in 2019, it's referring to the revenue we received during the course of the year. The fourth column, Total Disbursement, it is speaking to the expenditure, the resources which we used during the year. Then finally, the last column, Undisbursed Balance, it is speaking to the balance which we had at the year end of the year. Therefore, summarized, we are saying, on the last column, on the last row there, where we have totals, we are saying we started with a balance of 24,845. We received again total revenue 20,865. Then we spent it, in brackets we are subtracting 13,100 to give us a balance of 32,610. This is the figure now which we carried on to 2020. So we move on to 2020 financials. If I could have the 2020 slide now. On the 2020 slide, highlights 1, like I have already alluded to, we started with a balance 32,610 at the beginning or commencement of the year. As usual, as always, our financial year is January to December 2020 as the APNODE Constitution. So, given the postponement of the AGM in 2020, postponement of the AGM which was planned to take place in Rabat, Morocco, we had a challenge as a network. Because usually our resources, we get them from fees from our partner members, from our networks, when they come to pay during the AGM. And for the case of 2020, we had a challenge. Our members could not come together and make these payments. So in terms of inflows, during 2020, it's very important to highlight that we had a challenge. We literally did not receive any inflow in the year 2020. But also important to highlight that efforts were made by our secretariat to try to engage our member networks to make their payments, but it failed in vain. We could not get any inflows even through electronic transfers. So we had a challenge in 2020. Right, we move on to the next highlight with that balance in mind. During the course of the year 2020, we, as a network, it made some efforts to engage other partners in order to mobilize resources. As such, efforts to grow the resource base saw the network submitting a proposal of $250,000 to the Nigerian Technical Cooperation Fund, NTCF, at the African Development Bank, looking for funds. Then the other development, positive development, in an effort to try to mobilize resources, we also received partnership requests from AFCOP, MFDR, African Community of Practice on Managing for Development Results, to strengthen parliamentary capacity within EALA, East African Legislative Assembly. We also got requests from USAID funded access initiative on strengthening parliamentary M&E capacity in West Africa. During the course of 2020, we naturally had some expenses, and these expenses amounted to $6,662.82, and the composition of the expenditure is as shown below: brochures, notepads, pens, and other miscellaneous costs. So, During this period, 2020, those were the expenses which we incurred. We move on to the next slide. If we could move on to the next slide, slide 3. Kobena. It's fine. Thank you, Kobena. On highlight 3, it's also important that we highlight the support in kind which we got from APNODE strategic partners, which contributed approximately $98,000. Then, during the course of the year, like we have already said, we did not get any other inflows. We had 0 cash inflows and minimal disbursements. We have just shown on the previous slide stood. Then by the end of the day, after subtracting those disbursements, we got a total of 25,947.26. This was now the closing balance at the end of the year 2020, summarized in the next slide to come. Next slide. The summary of our disbursements in terms of the category, we had membership fees 32,610 at the beginning of the year. In terms of total revenue which we received during the course of the year, we did not get anything. In terms of disbursements in 2020, we have 6,662.82 in brackets. It means we are subtracting to get a balance of 25,947.26. So that's the financial summary of our transactions, which leaves us with 25,947.26. That's the figure which we have in our purse at the moment. Then we go on to the next slide. For the next and last slide, an effort has been made to try to proffer solutions for way forward against a background of our financial constraints. Number 1, we have said that there is need to grow the membership across countries and within our national parliaments. We need to grow the membership. Number 2, there is need to encourage members, individuals and parliaments to honor their annual member subscriptions. Like we have already experienced that most of us, we have not paid. So it's imperative if the APNODE organization is to survive, there is need for us to mobilize such resources. There is also need to strengthen engagement with existing partners and forge new ties and rethink financial support based on partnership value addition. Lastly, but not least, the need to intensify awareness on the existence and mandate of APNODE as being central to Africa's socio-economic transformation agenda. I thank you for your attention.